Good morning.
Good morning.
Hello. It's funny, you were on last week talking about solid waste, but today you are here talking about your candidacy for Tillamook County Commissioner.
Yes, that is true.
Yes. Tell us a little bit about Dave McCall, your background. You have a very interesting background, actually, and what you do now, kind of give us the rundown of your life.
Well, thank you. Whether or not it's interesting is up to up to interpretation. Some people might think it's interesting. Some people might think it's run-of-the-mill or even boring. I was born in a very small town in South Dakota, raised there, graduated from high school, and like a lot of my friends will agree, South Dakota is a great place to be from, but not necessarily a great place to be in. So once I graduated from high school, I left. I took off. I actually moved to Washington, D.C., where I got a scholarship to go to Georgetown University, graduated there, and then went to East Central Europe, where it was the end of the Cold War, and I applied and was picked up by a Peace Corps-backed program that sent me to Budapest, Hungary, to be one of the first two people they had sent there after the Cold War. As you may recall, the Peace Corps had been getting a lot of requests to send people to not only developing countries, but second world countries, like in Eastern Europe, Hungary, Poland, Czechoslovakia. And there was about a dozen people that this group sent to those three countries. And I happened to be one of two who was sent to Budapest. And I went there with the intention of staying 2, maybe 3 years. After 3 years, met my wife, fell in love, got together, got another job, and all told, I wound up spending 22 years based in Hungary before I moved to Tillamook back in 2012.
Mm-hmm. And what made you decide to move to Tillamook?
Well, so Hungary went through a very difficult and interesting period in their history. Anybody who keeps up on kind of international affairs and developments in that part of the world will have seen that over the last several years, Hungary has gone, really shied away from democracy, gone to a much more authoritarian structure and leadership. And I had been working in the waste management sector for pretty much my entire professional life. After this Peace Corps-backed program, I got involved with landfills and recycling and worked in that field. And the government did essentially a nationalization of the waste management sector. So I lost, all my business entities, the things that I had, and was looking for a job. And, by the power of the Internet, I applied for a job opening in Tillamook County, and I came over. I had one of the first Skype interviews that the county had ever done, and came over, did a face-to-face interview, looked around, fell in love with the area, and decided that this is the place where I wanted to work and live.
Cool. You also have received some pretty prestigious awards in the industry of waste management, hazardous material management, things like that. Can you talk a little bit about those? I know sometimes it's hard to talk about, accolades and recognition, but I think it's important to mention.
Yeah, it's a lot easier if somebody else talks about them on my behalf. I'll say I did receive the Recycler of the Year award from the Association of Oregon Recyclers back in 2017. But the things I'm most proud of are I've received a few different awards from the NAMA, which is the North American Hazardous Materials Management Association. They are the industry group that really tries to affect the hazard materials, so not only hazardous waste on the inside, but also affect the types of products that are coming out and reduce the hazards that are going into them. If we think back in time, 50, 60 years ago, DDT was a common pesticide that was sprayed out, and we didn't think about it. This is the type of group that has gone out to really push to get rid of materials like that on the front end so that we don't have them on the store shelves and things like that. And so I received an Agent of Change award from them, And other than that, every year that they've had a regional conference, I have received what's called a Golden Bung Award. If you know, a 55-gallon drum has two caps on the top, and those are called bungs. And they award this Golden Bung Award to those people who came across and found some of the most interesting or unusual materials coming through the hazardous waste programs, specifically things that could be really dangerous to society, and you wonder why they were out there or how they made it into the facility without causing a bigger hazard. And so, I mean, I must say Tillamook County has one of the most efficient, best operating hazardous waste programs in the state. When we look at a per capita basis, we collect 3.5 to 4 times more material as our county counterparts in Portland or Seattle. And, you know, when you take in a lot of stuff, that also means you get some unusual things that come in. You know, one of the things a couple years ago that was really interesting was a fire extinguisher, which was over 100 years old.
Wow.
So you have to wonder, okay, it's over 100 years old. Where has that been for the last, say, 90 years? Yeah, and what happened that it actually got brought in now? A lot of times it's when, you know, the parents pass away and the kids are in cleaning up the house, getting ready to sell it, and they find all this stuff in the back of the garage or the basement or something, and that's how it comes forward.
That's cool. It's a little piece of history, though, kind of.
Well, yeah, that's actually the fire extinguisher. You know, the fact of the matter is it wasn't hazardous at all. It was essentially baking soda that they put in a copper tube.
Oh, wow. And
so one of the great things with that was rather than disposing of it, we donated it to the Pioneer Museum.
Very cool. I bet that it looks a lot different than fire extinguishers now, too.
Oh, yeah. Like I said, it was essentially a copper tube about 4 feet long filled with baking soda.
Oh, my gosh.
And you just had to pull off one end, and then it was actually a flue fire extinguisher, a flue extinguisher. So you pulled off the one end and then gave it a big kind of jerk to push all the baking soda into your fireplace flue. That's how it works.
Gosh. That's cool, though. What are some other things that have come in that are kind of odd to hazardous waste? Or what do you consider hazardous waste?
Well, hazardous waste is basically anything that could cause harm to the human, you know, to humans or animals for that matter. You know, we regularly get lead-based paint in. One of the more interesting things is that has come in some paint that was marked that it's hazardous to humans, but safe for animals. And this was a type of fence paint. And I kind of wonder exactly how they determined that it's safe for animals but hazardous to humans, because if you paint a fence and a cow goes and licks on it, what made them sure at that time that it was not hazardous to those cows?
Right. Our batteries are
another interesting thing I saw was from many, many years ago, a home chemistry set, which the labels had all washed away or fallen away off of these little vials. So you had no idea what was in them. But we don't do this ourselves. We have a team of experts that comes in every month and runs this program. And they looked at this, and one of them said he remembered seeing a set like this when he was a little kid. And, you know, has a master's in chemistry. And he said, there are some nasty things in here. The problem is, after all the labels are gone, you don't know which one was the nasty one.
Yeah. Batteries are also considered hazardous waste. Is that correct?
So are you talking about the little batteries like...
like a AA or AAA?
So yes and no. Traditionally, they were considered hazardous waste because they contained mercury. But we basically got rid of the mercury content in these batteries back in the 80s. And so if you have really old batteries, yes, they are considered hazardous. If you have new ones, so produced from the 90s on, they no longer contain mercury, so therefore they don't have to be considered hazardous. They could be put in with metal or trash, We take all the batteries we get in. We actually treat them as hazardous waste, but they go to a place, they're made into rebar, so they're recycled.
Oh. Okay. What are some of the committees, groups, boards, et cetera, that you are currently involved in, that you've been involved in? Because as we know, I feel like nothing gets done in our community without the help of volunteers and people volunteering their time to continue to keep things running.
Yeah. So in the past, I've been on, I was one of the board members and president for a while of the Tillamook Farmers Market for 3 or 4 years. And we turned that over to the Chamber of Commerce, I believe, 2 years ago. I've been on, different informal groups and some more formal groups. I was the chair of the Tillamook County Democrats for, I think, 4 years or so. I participated in the Social Directors Network, but in kind of recent years, the last 3.5 years, something that has really taken a lot of my time has been being a city councilor in the city of Bay City. Mm-hmm. And in Bay City, up until now, has worked on a little bit different structure. We were the only city in the county that did not have a city manager, which meant that the city council took on a lot more responsibility and functions than in a lot of the cities. And we recently transitioned, and we're in the process. We hired a city manager, and we're in the process of transitioning over into that. So it'll be a little less work for the council, just because this council was not only a governing body, but was essentially the employer supervisor. So the city council did all the employee evaluations for all the department heads, for example. Mm-hmm. There were a lot of decision-making things that the council had to do, because that authority had not been delegated to anybody.
Right. I had to take a quick break, but I want to talk about why you decided to run for commissioner and also what issues you want to focus on if you are voted in when I come back from commercial. Do you know one of those do-it-yourself kind of guys? They're always telling you to do it yourself. Well, sometimes that isn't the best solution. You're in luck, whether it's a leaky faucet or a complete bathroom remodel, or maybe replacing that septic system. Do yourself a favor. Call Clark's Plumbing. They're professionals. They'll get the job done. Anything, new installations, upgrades, that stopped-up drain, you name it, they can do it. So the next time you hear do it yourself, do yourself a favor and call 842-5105. That's 842-5105 for the professionals at Clark's Plumbing. I'm talking with Commissioner candidate David McCall this morning. And you ran was it 2 years ago?
Yes, it was 2 years ago.
Okay. It's so hard it just feels like it wasn't 2 years ago. It feels like it might have been last year.
But at other times, it seems like it must have been at least 10 years ago.
Right. Exactly. Time has no value right now, feels like. Why did you decide to run again for commissioner?
Well, on the note of time has no value, let's remember, it is Tuesday.
Yes.
We don't always know what day of the week it is.
April 7th.
Today is Tuesday.
Yes.
So when I decided to run, that was before the coronavirus pandemic broke out and became really the focal point of our daily lives as it's been. But I feel that Tillamook County really deserves to have leaders that are there and proactively thinking towards the future and respect not just the final decisions, but the process that goes into it, that take the time to do the research, to make good decisions, consult with the people, and think forward in a proactive method. I think innovation is something that's really important at all stages of our lives, but now as we're going through this coronavirus time, it's clear this is going to be a tough thing to get out of. It's going to take a lot of time, a lot of energy to pull ourselves out of this, but it's also an opportunity. This is an opportunity for us to look at the way we've been doing things and make changes in our lives, changes that really benefit the community moving forward. And I think one of the things that I've proven over the past 30 years is that I have a real ability to look at things differently and approach it with innovative methods that actually result in action and change things for the better. One of the things I'd like to mention out of this is we heard on the news this morning on Hometown News there is an advisory or a request out from several state agencies that people not burn because there's difficulties out there now. People are having difficulties breathing. There is a shortage of masks. I don't have to go into the whole list of why, but they're asking people to refrain from open burning right now. You can still heat your house with wood, as a lot of people do, but don't start up your burn barrels. Don't burn that pile of debris you've got in the backyard. Wait with that. I think now is a good time to look at that and say, okay, do we really need to burn that anyway? Is there a different method we can use to actually benefit our community and different people this way? For example, slash piles. Every time that I see, timber harvest is a fact of our life and, is going to remain here. But when I look at slash piles being burned, every time I see that, I think of a friend of mine I had in Germany who was taking slash piles and putting them into a biomass facility where they burn them to make electricity. We're burning them in the woods or in the open air, and we're not getting anything out of that except the smoke and the ash that's left. Could we actually take that woody biomass, convert it, and get electricity out of it, and then what we have at the end may be a biochar that can be used as kind of a fertilizer re-enhancer? Can we benefit that way? I recently saw an article that the largest shipment of all time, over 70,000 tons of wooden pellets, were shipped from Louisiana to somewhere in the UK. If it makes economical sense to take wood debris, make it into pellets, and ship it across the ocean, then we should be able to find an economic formula to make it work here in Tillamook County and get that slash to actually turn it into something that can benefit us.
So were those pallets built out of wood debris, like from a timber harvest?
So not pallets, but pellets.
Oh, pellets. Pellets. Okay, makes much more sense.
Yeah, they were made out of woody debris. Chipped up wood that were pressed into pellet form, and then they were bundled up and shipped over.
Interesting.
Another thing that's come out of this, very challenging time we're in right now is having so many people at home locked up and going stir-crazy. They're also trying to access the Internet more and more. I think we are a county that has a lot of fiber going right through it, but it's also a real struggle for a lot of people to get a decent Internet connection. And I think that's something we need to look at, evaluate, and move forward with to figure out how our community can get much better Internet access. Maybe look at a municipal Internet service provider that can actually tap into that fiber we have there and bring it to our communities so that we have the advantages of having that fiber flowing through us, and we're able to benefit from that and become a lot more resilient as we move forward.
I feel like that's a very relevant topic right now, just like you said, because everybody's at home working. And now this week, in particular, I know Neocani and Tillamook School are starting online learning. I'm not quite sure, Nestucca, but I know that they're going to be working on that as well. And having a reliable Internet connection has been interesting because I've worked from home for years, never had a problem, and now it takes me forever to upload something. And I just know that's because so many people are on, people working from home, kids working from home. So it's a very relevant, kind of a hot topic right now.
Oh, and even more so because our access to the Internet is really restricted because our libraries are closed. I live in a place where my Internet is actually depends on direct line of sight to a tower. And I get great Internet service when it's stormy. But when it's not windy and the leaves are out, that line of sight is partially blocked. So I have very sketchy Internet service there.
Sure.
There are times in the past where what I have done to make a Skype call, I've actually gone to the library or gone to a coffee shop and sat there and used the Wi-Fi there. Well, that's not a possibility now because the libraries are closed, the coffee shops are closed. The places that people a lot of times would have gone to use the Wi-Fi are not available at this time. So it makes it even more difficult for those who have difficulties.
Yeah. Well, and we've got, people that live up the Wilson and live up Trask that they just don't even have internet access anyway. There's no internet up there, which, of course, then they're affected just by nature of where they live.
Exactly. And some of those areas, we have fiber lines running almost under their houses. Not literally under their houses, but right in front.
But close, yeah. We have just a few minutes left. What are some other issues that you kind of feel are your wheelhouse that you want to tackle if voted in as commissioner? Or what are some things you would like to see changed?
Well, I think also because of not just because of this, but it's really brought to the forefront the need for emergency preparedness. Mm-hmm. When I got on the Bay City City Council, one of my goals was to get that emergency preparedness committee back up and running and moving forward. It was a struggle. So in Bay City, we took our annual budget for emergency preparedness we had, which was not being utilized, and we upped it fivefold over 2 years, and we're actually spending that money and using it now. We have, we've procured containers that we put at strategic locations, and we can fill those with blankets and tarps and water purifying or water cleaning equipment and things so that when we have an emergency, we can actually react. Because right now in Bay City, the way the public works the shop is set, it's in the Cascadia inundation zone. So if we have a Cascadia earthquake, we probably won't have access to the public works building. Mm-hmm. Therefore, we've moved certain things out of there so that we'll have access to it. I think a lot of people have learned very quickly that they are fairly well prepared in their homes. They're able to shelter in place I know people who have been at their homes and haven't left in 18, 20 days, mm-hmm. and they have adequate food supplies to be able to do that, and they figured it out. I also know other people who went into a panic because they didn't have enough food to last more than 2 or 3 days. So I think it's brought to the forefront the need for us to actually prepare and prepare well, because right now it's a virus pandemic we have.
Right.
But the same situation or a similar situation would be confronting us if we had a major earthquake, or mm-hmm. It could be even worse if we have forest fires that block us in and fill the air with smoke. A few years ago we had the tornado in Manzanita, which was a completely different type of emergency than we had been prepared for. But the groups that get involved with it and go through the process learn how to adapt, learn that very well. That's something I'd really like to help focus on and grow throughout the county and make sure we're prepared for whatever hits us.
Yeah, you think about an environmental impact of a tsunami or an earthquake, and realistically both of those at the same time, or a wildfire or something of that nature where we really truly can't leave our houses, or potentially our houses don't exist. It really kind of brings to light. Right now we have the ability to move around, and, I can go to the grocery store if I run out of something. I've been trying to avoid going. But in an instance of one of those type of environmental disasters, we wouldn't have that option.
Correct. And we wouldn't have the stores being replenished either.
Right.
Because right now, we all know about the jokes on Facebook and things like that with hoarding toilet paper. Well, if something like that happened, the trucks wouldn't be able to arrive with more toilet paper. Mm-hmm. There wouldn't be a wave of hoarders that could be replenished.
Right. We have 2 minutes left. Is there anything you want to mention about things you would like to see changed as part of the Board of Commissioners or in the county outside of what you've already mentioned?
Well, I find it very important that the Board of Commissioners engage with the public as much as possible. One of the things I would like to see change, so things are a little different right now because of the emergency situation.
Right.
I think it's a great step that Bill Bartline took when he called up KTIL and asked if you guys would live broadcast the calls on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and because that's informing the public of what's going on, and it really helps that public awareness and helps the public understand that government is still working and they're thinking in what's going on. I would like to see us go back to having commissioners' meetings on a regular basis in the evening and outside of Tillamook. So we should be going back to North County and South County and actually engaging with the people there, making sure that the people are part of the process, not just informed of the end result.
Mm-hmm. I do appreciate that they have been putting their leadership calls on a teleconference line so that you can call in. This channel actually, this radio station actually also airs it, which has been nice because sometimes I forget to call in, but I can just tune in at 8 o'clock on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday and listen on 95.9. So I do appreciate being able to participate in that way where I didn't necessarily have that option before. I could either go to the meeting or I had to wait until Jane put it on TV, which of course was about a week late. So
yeah, and sometimes the things that they were talking about had already passed by the time it made it onto TV.
Sure.
You know, a lot of things are still relevant, but you know, if they announce something that was happening in a week, it may have been the day before it actually comes out on TV.
Right. I do want to plug your Facebook page and website really quick. It is Vote David McCall on Facebook, and the website is votemccall.org. That is MCCALL. David, thanks for calling in this morning.
Hey, thanks so much for the opportunity.
Sure. Just a few reminders for everyone. School districts are providing free meals for all kids under the age of 18. Tillamook School District is delivering 5 hours after normal morning bus pickup time. So if your normal morning bus pickup time for the bus route was 7:15 a.m., you should be to your route about 12:15 p.m., 12:15 noon. Yesterday I heard that the route was kind of running a little bit late, so they did ask last week when they were on. Kurt Shelley said, please be patient. It could take up to 20 minutes for your meal to be delivered. They are delivering lunch and breakfast for the next morning. Grab-and-go meals are also available at the high school from noon to 1. Neocani is offering grab-and-go lunches. Their Facebook page has a list of scheduled deliveries and stops. You can call them at 503-355-2222. And Nestucca is also offering food delivery, but you do need to sign up on their website using the registration form. Registered parties will receive an email or text stating the delivery time. Their phone number is 503-392-4892. And also a reminder that Safeway is restricting hours for their most vulnerable shoppers from 7 to 9 a.m. on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Fred Meyer is also restricting their hours for the most vulnerable shoppers from 7 to 8 Monday through Thursday. That means that if you do not have a compromised immune system and you are not in the 55 and older crowd, try to avoid those grocery stores and your grocery shopping during those times. And as announced yesterday, TBCC is offering Tillamook High School juniors and seniors 2 free college courses if students register by this Friday at 3 p.m. These courses are in addition to the schoolwork and classes the high school is requiring. Students should contact Chris Beeman or Elizabeth Shelley at the high school to get set up with that. I think that's a pretty cool thing they're doing. David, thanks again for calling in this morning.
Hey, thank you for all you do. Thanks.
Absolutely. And thank you, Tillamook, for listening.